Chapter 8 Pirate Swoop. They climbed a tall mound to enter the castle. Dane was impressed by the thickness of the walls around the outer court, and by the alert and well-armed guardsmen. The Baron of Pirate Swoop kept his home in fighting order. A man in gold-trimmed brown ran up to Thea, bowing repeatedly as he talked to her. The Queen signaled Bury, and the second-in-command turned in her saddle. "Riders, this way!" She and Sarge led the trainees to long, low buildings along the wall, stables by the look of one, and the guard barracks. Ottawa came up beside Dane. "Wait here. I want them to stable their mounts so they can unload the cart." She grinned. "A bit of advice, for what it's worth. Never do anything you can order a recruit to do for you." Dane grinned. "I'll remember that." Movement caught her eye. A flag was being run up one of the 3 towers. When the breeze caught it, she grinned. It was a gold lioness rampant on a red field, the same as Alana's shield. On the tower next to it was a brown flag decorated with a gold key. "The Baron's flag," Ottawa said, noticing the direction of her gaze. "Those flags mean the Baron and the Lady Knight are both in residence." "No flag for the Queen?" she asked. Ottawa shuddered. "Gods, no! It's bad enough the whole palace knows where the summer training camp is, without crying it from the towers. George has made this place strong, but why ask for trouble if you don't need it?" Grooms took Thea and Alana's mounts as the woman stretched. Suddenly, shrieks filled the air. It took Dane a moment to realize the sound was not birds, but children screaming, "Mama! Mama!" A pack of them dashed through the inner court's gate and separated, 3 to Alana, 2 to the Queen. Thea's pair, both dark-haired, a boy and a girl, bowed when they were a foot away from their mother, then threw themselves at her. "The prince is 9, the princess 8, Ottawa explained. "They asked to watch the training this year instead of staying with the younger children in the summer palace." Alana's 3, the tallest a true redhead, the younger 2 blondes with a touch of red in their locks, didn't even stop to bow. She laughed and knelt to return their hugs, disappearing for a moment under their bodies. "You'd think they'd been brought up in a barn, wouldn't you?" a lilting voice asked nearby, "climbing on their ma like she was a hobby horse." Dane looked down from her seat on the wagon. The speaker was a tall, broad-shouldered man with brown hair lightened by the sun. His nose was too big for her good looks, but there was a wicked twinkle in his large green hazel eyes, and his grin was catching. He wore a shirt and breeches, and had come from watching the sea, to judge from his tousled hair and the spyglass in his hand. She had to return his smile. "They must love her very much." "She's easy to love," he replied. "For you, maybe," Ottawa said, dismounting. "I know 60 offenders against the king's law who don't find her at all lovable." "Hello, Baron." "Ottawa, every time I see you, gods be my witness, you make me wish I wasn't married." They hugged vigorously, slapping each other on the back. "You'd never pull in my harness, George." "Dane, this gentleman—" "Don't call me gentleman. I work for a living," he interrupted. Dane grinned. Sarge often said the same thing. "This nobleman is Baron George of Pirate Swoop. George, this is Dane, my assistant." A large hand was offered. Dane shook it. Like all the nobles she'd met in this strange country, his palm was calloused. "Welcome to Pirate Swoop, Mistress Dane. How did you fall into such bad company?" She blushed, not knowing how to take this charming man. "Stop flirting with her, George. You'll only break her heart." Ottawa winked at Dane, who winked back, thankful for the rescue. "How long have the prince and princess been here?" "A week only," the Baron replied, taking his sharp eyes off Dane. In a quieter tone, Ottawa asked, "Any trouble?" George's eyes flicked to Dane. "You can trust her," the Khmer assured him. "We all do." Dane blushed again when George raised his eyebrows. "That's quite a recommendation, young lady. I didn't think Ottawa even liked 2-leggers." Looking around, he said, "Bless me, so you did take on Evan Lars." Seeing them, Evan waved and loped over, his long legs taking him across the outer ward court in seconds. "George, I made it," he said, panting as he offered his hand. "I told you I would. Wait till you hear about the trip we've had. Did you know you have griffins nesting up the coast?" "I've got the whole village quartered here," George said, making a face, "eating our food and begging me to send soldiers after 'em. Tell me true, is it really griffins, or just a pair of mean albatrosses?" "It's griffins, and you don't have to send a company," Evan assured him. "Dane here got them to make peace." "I didn't get them to do anything," Dane retorted. "With the charming Baron she might be tongue-tied, but never with Evan. They don't do anything they don't want to, but they promised the Queen not to attack people or livestock," she told George. "And they can't lie, so I believed them." "Wait," he ordered. "You've had speech with them and made a treaty. "This is a fine welcome you've given me, laddie buck," Alana said, trying to imitate her husband's speech as she approached. She bore a gold-haired child on each hip. "Here I am, home from the wars, and you let me be swarmed over by barbarians whilst you flirt with my friends." "Excuse me," George said gravely to the adults, and to the children he plucked from his wife's hold. Gripping the lioness firmly, he bent her back in a prolonged kiss that looked like a romantic scene in a play. Everyone, even the men-at-arms posted along the walls, clapped, whistled, and cheered. "Does anyone in this land act like they're supposed to?" muttered Dane. Anawa heard the question. "They do in lots of places," she said, eyes twinkling. "But this isn't lots of places. It's Pirate Swoop. And if you think this is strange, just wait till you've been here a couple of days." Exploring after the evening meal in the castle's great hall, Dane got directions to the observation deck on top of the third largest tower. Here the wall rose out of stone cliffs. Looking down, she saw rocks, a thread of beach, and heavy waves. Relaxed, she watched the sun dip itself into the ocean as a cool breeze blew across her face. She liked the Swoop, she decided. If she had to live within stone walls all her days, this would be the kind of place she'd want. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The lioness relaxed against the stone wall at Dane's side. "I'm so glad to be home." "You have a home to go to," the girl thought, and was immediately ashamed of herself. How could she begrudge the knight a place of her own? "I don't see how you could ever leave this," she admitted. "I don't either, except I took an oath as a knight, then as champion, long before I came here. And I keep my oaths." They fell silent again. It's odd to see her in a dress, Dane thought, wearing perfume, it's pretty, whatever it is, and pearl earbobs and silk, and yet she fits here. She sighed. "I wish this were my place," she thought wistfully. "I bet I could fit here too." A distant cry fell upon her ears. She and Alana looked north and saw a bird shape wheeling over the ocean. "Griffins," the lioness remarked. "It's like a story, or a bard's tale." "So are lady knights," thought Dane, but she kept that to herself. If only griffins were all of it. They looked up. Only a handful of clouds were in the sky, but they knew there was a stormwing behind one, and that more waited up and down the coast. "My father is a scholar." The woman's voice was soft. "The king asked him to report on what he could learn about stormwings. He says they live for destruction and the fear that destruction provides. They eat only the products of war, famine, and disease, the bodies of the dead. They drink only the energy of human suffering and fury. They've had a long fast, 400 years' worth, in the divine realms. I have a feeling they won't be as easy to send back as they were to set free." Send back? Dane had a thought, and she didn't like it. If they had to be locked in the divine realms, maybe they were never supposed to be there. Maybe there are predators. Our predators? Surely. She tugged one of her curls. "You speak of locking them up again as if it can be done. What if the gods don't allow it, because the Stormwings are supposed to be here, not there?" Alana winced. "That's a very cheerful thought. I wish you hadn't come up with it. If you're right, we have a lot of battles ahead." Dane slept in the stable loft, cushioned by the bodies of the castle's many dogs and cats. At breakfast, she listened as the trainees were given a day off, except for caring for their mounts. That meant a day off for her as well, and she could use one. All her shirts needed mending, and a wash wouldn't hurt any of her clothes. Getting directions to the castle laundry, she returned to her loft and gathered her clothes. On the way back from the laundry, she found Zelda checking the saddlebags that had been issued to each trainee for the trip south. "Smile," the brunette said, shoving her belongings into a pack. "I'm quitting. I've had enough fun in the wilderness." Dane glanced away. She wouldn't miss the girl at all. "Don't look so pleased." Zelda folded the bags and hung them back next to her tack. "One of these days, you'll be packing yourself." "Me? Whatever for?" The older girl's smile was bitter as she looked Dane over. "Are you blind? How long can they afford to keep you on, do you suppose? After that thing with the griffins, I figured it was all over for you." Dane felt cold. "I've no notion what you mean." "What happens if they're in a battle and you get hurt? You think they can risk their mounts coming to your rescue?" "I don't." The girl shouldered her pack as Anawa came in. "Don't say I didn't warn you." Anawa looked at her suspiciously. "You'd best get to the wharf. The boat won't wait." Zelda gave both of them an ironic salute and was gone. Anawa rolled up her sleeves. "This is a surprise inspection. Let's see how the trainees' mounts look while they're off relaxing. You start on that side, I'll start here," she ordered. "We can talk while we work. Look at everything, mind, nose to tail. What poison was she dripping in your ear? Dane stroked the muzzle of the first pony with a hand that shook. She said the riders can't afford to keep me. She's right, isn't she? If animals know I'm in trouble, they will come to me. Numer himself said I couldn't shield all my wild magic. Maybe that's so. Anna ran a brush over Patrick's mincheek to see if extra hair fell out after a morning grooming. But it wasn't the riders that hired you. It was me. As long as I say so, you work for me, not them. How can you do that? She whispered. You're a rider. No, I'm a civilian expert. I deal with whatever concerns horses, and that's all. I'm no soldier. Anna pointed at her with a brush. You saved my life in the marsh and at the palace when the Stormwings hit. You saved Numer. He was the first person here I knew liked me for myself. I won't let you down. She reached over and dabbed at a tear rolling down Dane's cheek. Those of us that's horse-hearted have to stick together, all right? Dane nodded. But you'd tell me if I wasn't giving satisfaction? Anna grinned. If we spend more than the morning checking these mounts, I will be most unhappy. I was planning to take the afternoon off. Dane went to work, smiling. They had just finished when hoofbeats rang outside and a voice yelled, Dane? They said you were in here. She ran outside as Numer climbed off his sweat-stained gelding. Come with me, he ordered. We have to find the Stormwings. She shaded her eyes to look up at him. What do you mean? Are they behind their little clouds being sneaky? He shook his head. They're gone. Vanished. She spent the afternoon on the observation deck with Numer and Alana, searching as far out as she could drive her magic for any sign of the immortals. The gifted ones applied themselves to scrying, or looking. Numer used a round crystal he carried in a pouch, Alana a mirror with, Dane was tickled to see, roses painted on the back. It's not my taste, the knight said dryly. This is from Thom, my oldest. A birthday gift. It's the thought that matters. She glanced at the back of the mirror, winced, and turned it to the reflecting side. That's what I keep telling myself anyway, and it makes for a very good scrying tool. For herself, Dane sank deep into meditation, listening up and down the coast. She heard the griffin female return to the nest with food. Griffin males, it seemed, helped to brood eggs. Her friends among the sea lions were prospering, as were other seals and sea lions. A number of whales had come to swim in the waters around the Swoop, but she didn't have time to attempt to speak with them. Crossing her fingers, she hoped they'd stay close long enough for her to get a chance. Other sounds she identified as two groups, Mary called them pods, of dolphins. At last she drew her senses back to the castle. Nothing. Alana grimaced. No luck for us either. So our friends have given us the bag. The Baron had joined them at some point. Seeing Dane's puzzled look, he said, They've escaped us. It's thieves' cant, meaning a delightful trick whereby you wait for your pursuer and slip a large bag over his head to blind him. Dane scowled. Well, I'm not blinded, and they aren't there. George smiled at her. I believe you. He looked at Numer. Is there a way to nab one of these beasties for questioning? Numer frowned. I'm not really sure. If we can kill them, I assume we can capture them. You know, it's moments like this that I really miss the university library. We're working on ours, Alana pointed out. Maybe the king has the proper books already. And, oh wait, what about the golden net? Numer's face lit. You know, with a few adjustments... My lords and ladies, a proper man in the livery of a castle servant had come up to the deck. We dine in half an hour. I think I have the basic spell in the book I've been reading, Alana told Numer. If you want to come take a look. They followed the servant down into the tower, talking about spells and their variations. Dane looked at the sun. It was low. No wonder I'm hungry. If you hear one of those nasties again, let's catch it, George said. I don't think we'll get anywhere talking to one, she pointed out. The Baron's grin was neither warm nor friendly. You leave that to me. They studied the ocean together. It's strange how folk look at a thing. Numer sees what's comin' to us. He thinks of the return of old magic, magic that's controlled by none and understood only by a few. My wife sees a threat to her kingdom. Me, I'm a commoner, born and bred, title or no. You know what I think of? Omens and portents. Like the red star that blazed over us when the Emperor Osborne was crowned 7 years back. Then maybe we're lucky the Stormwings are giving us so much time to think about them before they do something really nasty, Dane said. George laughed. Now there's a practical way to look at it, and I thank you. It does no good to brood about what might come. He offered his arm with a bow. Let's go to supper and drink to the confusion of our enemies." Newmark kept her at her lessons until the midnight hour was called. She trudged back to the stable the riders used, yawning heartily as she climbed to her loft bed. Her mind spinning with new animal groups, she kept her eyes open barely long enough to pull on her nightshirt. She awoke to a stable cat giving birth near her ear, and 3 children, a girl and 2 boys, watching her solemnly. "I suppose you're fair proud of yourself," Dane told the cat. "My wondrous book says you're a feline, and a carnivore, and a vertebrate, and a mammal. I wish them that wrote it could smell around here right now, and maybe they wouldn't call you all those pretty names." The girl wriggled out from between her blankets and grabbed her clothes. The feline was busy cleaning the last of the new kittens and refused to reply. "It's too early to be paying social calls," she told the children. "Our mama said you're a mage." That was Theod's daughter, Callison. She took after her handsome father, sharing his blue eyes and coal-black hair. Dane sat on her bed. "I'm no mage." She grinned. "Newmark calls me a magelet, but that's just for fun. It's too early to be answering questions." "Ma says you help animals." Thom's hair was redder than Alana's, and he had George's green hazel eyes. "We brung ye him. He was on the wall." The 2 older children lifted a basket and offered it to Dane. Inside lay an osprey, a fishing hawk, glaring at her over a broken leg. If the cat hadn't been giving birth close by, she would have known about him already. She sighed and took the basket. "It's all right then, you can go now." Turning her attention to the bird, she carefully took him from the basket. "How'd you manage this, sir?" He shrieked and slashed at her when she joggled his leg. "I'm sorry," she murmured, gentling him with her mind. "I'll make it better, I hope." She went to work, unaware that the children watched her, fascinated. Bird bone was easier than otter bone to mend. It was thinner and hollow. Better still, it wasn't a clean break, but one of the green stick kind, which meant the bone simply had to be fused together again. Opening her eyes, she saw that the break was healed, the bird's pain gone. She was dripping sweat onto him. "Sorry," she murmured as he shook himself. He cocked his head, looking at the mended leg. He was impressed and intrigued by what she had done. At the moment, however, what he was most interested in was a nap. She smiled. "Just when you wake up, obey the rules. No hunting or teasing any other creatures in this castle. They're all my friends too." The osprey understood. She settled him on a wooden rail and brought water from the stables below. Promising she'd see him later, she gathered her things again and left. Her early visitors waited for her by the stable door. "You missed breakfast," Prince Roald said. "We brought you some." He handed over a napkin wrapped around sweet rolls. "Thank you," Dane said. "That was very kind." She wolfed 2 of the rolls, knowing her manners were terrible, and not caring. "Papa gets hungry when he's been using his gift," remarked the princess. Dane wiped her mouth. "It was good of you to bring the osprey, and the food. I thank you. Now, I think you should go back to the nursery, please. Won't the servants be missing you?" "We're too old for the nursery," replied Thom with all the dignity of his 6 years. "Only the twins have to stay there. They're 4. Poor things. Listen, I have to bathe, and then I work for the writers, which means I've no time to chat. Goodbye." They looked at her hopefully. What was she supposed to say? At home, she'd never spoken with a child. Parents had always kept them from her. "If I ignore them, they'll go away," she decided, and went to the baths. When she came out, they were waiting. They trailed her to the stable, admiring the new kittens while she stowed her gear. They followed her back down to the ponies and helped as she looked after Selda's old pair, as well as Mangle and Cloud, holding brushes, pails, and rakes for her. They were still with Dane as the trainees, subdued after a morning conference with their officers, came to look after their mounts. Thea broke out laughing when she saw what was going on. "I'm sorry, Dane," she said, giggling, "but it's like ducklings." "No offense, children." "You said we ought to learn more about the stables, Mama." Callison was more outspoken than her brother. "You said if we wanted to come with you and the riders when we're older, we'd have to take care of our gear and all." "Dane has to decide if you can stay, however," the Queen said. The girl wished the children wouldn't look at her piteously. Thea was right. It was like ducklings. She could have shot them easier than resist those eyes. "Onawa? Sarge?" she asked, hoping. They shook their heads. "Look at it this way," Beery said. "You'll need help with the new extras. JC and Kennelum handed in resignations a little while ago. Starting tomorrow, we're taking groups outside the castle walls for days at a stretch. You won't even have Onawa then." Selda had been right, Dane thought, looking at Beery and the Queen. They know I won't be helpful in the field, not if the ponies obey me first. A gentle hand rested on her shoulder. Anawa's. Somebody does have to care for the washout's horses, the comer whispered. It's real work, not just something to do because we haven't the heart to throw you out. And you need to stay close and study with Numer, remember? Once you start, no quitting, they had told her children. If you agree to help Dane, that's what you do. It's a responsibility. You can't stop just because you're tired of it. The two coal-black heads nodded seriously. Thom? The lioness asked. I don't think he's old enough to bind him, Dane thought, but Thom was already promising. She recognized the expression on his face. He might be only 6, but he would keep up with Roald and Callison or die trying. Which means I'll have to watch him, she thought with a sigh. Ducklings. A week passed. It was easier to manage them than she expected. Being able to meet wild animals was a powerful attraction, one the ducklings did not tire of and would not risk losing. Though she incurred the wrath of all the nursery helpers but the chief one, Maud, by introducing their charges to savage beasts, she presented her friends to weasels, crows, bats, and deer. She let them watch as she worked to heal one of the dogs, who'd had a paw smashed by a passing wagon. She was surprised to find Roland and Callison did help in the stable, and that only Thom's size kept him from doing as much. She knew from her meetings with the twins that his maturity came from the possession of 2 appallingly lively younger siblings. Roald and Callison also had younger sibs, but their maturity seemed to result from what people expected Tortle and royalty to do. She was surprised, and a bit shocked, to learn that they fed and groomed their ponies at home. She had never heard of princes and princesses who had chores. I'll be a page in a year, Roald pointed out one day as they helped with the constant chore of mending tack. They had settled on the flat area in front of Dane's stable, as she had come to think of it, as a place for such chores. I'd have to learn then anyway. It's best to know as much as I can ahead of time. Papa says later the other lessons will keep me busy. I'll be a page too. Callison had insisted Dane call her Callie, as the children did. Papa said girls can be knights, so that's what I'll do. Dane was about to ask Thom if he wanted his shield when a messenger came through the gate at full gallop. Covered with dust, the man slid from his horse as hostlers came to take it. Lioness, he gasped. Message for the lioness. A servant bowed. This way. Thom, the princess, and the prince watched, all looking grim. Great, Thom said. She has to go away again. Callie sighed. It's like Mama in raiding season, she told him. We're lucky to have mothers who fight. Our fathers must stay at home and protect their people. Da fights and they hit the village. Thom was a stickler for fact. Papa fights if he can. Roald tried to smile and failed. Poor things, Dane thought. They miss their folks, coming and going all the time. At least while Ma and Grandad were alive, they were there. How about a run to the beach? She asked. The seals aren't that far out. If we ask nice, maybe they'll come in. Maybe I should wait, replied the red-headed boy. I'll have Gimpy keep watch, Dane wheedled. Usually the bloodhound's name made Thom smile, but not now. He'll fetch us if they saddle Darkmoon. I'm not a baby. I won't cry or anything. It's just I keep having bad dreams anymore. Thom looked down, biting his lip. Let's go look at the seals, Dane urged gently. Gimpy was coming for them when the lioness and Darkmoon passed him on the slope to the beach. The minute she stopped, they knew it was serious. She wore full mail. A company of the Swoop's guards waited by the gate, wearing combat gear. One of them carried a banner, crimson silk with a gold lioness rampant, the personal flag of the king's champion. The knight slid from the saddle, hanging shield and sword from the pommel before kneeling to embrace her son. Thom fought tears. You know Faith Mandesh? She spoke to all 3. Roald and Callie liked her and didn't look any happier than her son. They've got ogres, 3 of them. They killed the lord and his son and have the rest of the family trapped in the keep. I have to go. We're the king's closest representatives. Thom swallowed. Ma, ogres are huge. Not huge. Huge. The messenger says the male is 8 feet or so. That's not bad, and he's the biggest. Alana smiled, but her eyes spoke of worry and watchfulness. I'm taking some men, all right? That seemed to reassure the children. Thom, mind your father and Maud, and don't get under people's feet. A hug and a kiss. She took them. And you be good. She tousled his hair and shook hands with Roald and Callie. Tell your seal guests good night, she advised. You need to clean up before supper. All of them went to obey. The knight watched them pat the seals, pulling on an amethyst-stitched glove. Should I go with you, Lioness? Offered Dane. If it's immortals? No, with 20 men I should be fine. What gets me angry is I told Mandesh to arm his people if he was too cheap to hire soldiers. But no, we can't teach peasants to use weapons. What if they decide they don't like their overlords? She sighed. I shouldn't speak ill of the dead. I just don't like the timing, and I don't like it being immortals. She took one of Dane's hands in both of hers. Her grip was powerful. Will you and Numa look after my family? Don't let anything happen to them. Chills crept up the girl's spine. We won't, Lioness. Alana smiled. Thank you. She drew a deep breath and went to bid goodbye to the children once more. The Lioness had been gone for 2 days. Dane had collapsed early into her loft bed, worn out from her evening's lessons. She dreamed. It was a pleasant night in her badger set. With her belly full, she listened to the kits play. She was about to go for a cool drink of water when her dreams changed. Trees and a moonlit sky tumbled around her. Boats filled with men came onto the beaches, and men crept among the trees. Speaking softly and fast, they lit fires, scorching the roofs and blinding her. Into flight she tumbled, over the roaring cold and salty place with panic in her throat. There was the light ahead, the one the forest bats had sung about, a beacon of safety. She was the greatest of the people. She could protect them when strange men broke the night rituals. Dane gasped and sat up. Odds bobs, what was that about? With her excellent night vision and the light of the full moon that came in the windows under the eaves, she saw that the rafters overhead were thick with bats. A good 30 of them, mixed breeds, watched her with nervous eyes. 3 were hoary bats, named for the frost on their brown fur. By themselves they would not have been a surprise. They weren't sociable bats, not like the clusters of big and little brown bats that hung with them, or the handful of pipistrelles. Wing friends, what's amiss? She asked softly. Come and tell me. Within seconds she was a bat tree, with little bodies festooned on her curls and parts of her nightshirt. All of them trembled in terror. Hush, she told them. Closing her eyes, she thought of deep and even breaths, of safety in caves, of the drip and echo of water in high chambers. Slowly the bats took her calm into themselves. Small talons changed their grip. This time the flesh was not caught along with the cloth. The trembling eased and became a thin vibration. Some of the bolder ones returned to the rafters to give her air. She sent the calm out with them, enticing more of those who clung to her to take to the perches they were used to, hanging from wood. The ones left were the hoary bats and the leaders of each group. Dane opened her eyes. Now let's hear it, one at a time. It was all she could do to stay calm when they described what they had seen. It was her dream. Men, strangers, coming from the woods and from boats on the water, hiding under the trees. She had to clamp down on her witnesses a little to make sure of the numbers they were describing. Bats tended to count by the way they roosted. Their idea of numbers was flexible and depended on the breed of bat. Dane knew she couldn't tell the Baron or the riders her friends had seen 6 quarter colonies or whatever the total was. Not only would that not be helpful, but they would think she was crazy. To the hoary bats who roosted alone, the men had arrived in flocks, like deer they saw grazing at night. Moreover, each bat had come from a different part of the wood that ran along the coast. After scribbling with a stick of charcoal on her drawing pad and squinting to read her own marks, she concluded that each hoary bat had seen nearly 50 men. The big brown bats had seen at least 2 colonies, 60 men or so. Most of the pipistrelles were from one place and had seen less than half of one of their colonies, almost 50. One lone pipistrelle from the wood north of the Swoop identified another half colony. The little brown bats had come from the east and the south. Each of their sightings came to 2 tenth colonies. For them that meant 200 men, all told. All the bats assured her their counts had not overlapped, and that she took as truth. Their concepts of numbers might be odd, but a bat's knowledge of territory was precise to a pin. Dane looked at the numbers, her skin tingling in shock. If the bats were right, they had seen more than 500 strange men coming over land or by sea and landing near the cove. The bats were more familiar with the locals than those humans might have believed possible. The little animals insisted the strangers were not their humans. Moreover, the strangers all wore metal over some parts of their bodies, and all carried or wore wood tipped with metal and bars of metal. Dane could see their faces in the bats' minds. They were the hard faces of warriors. Carefully, without frightening the animals, she eased into her breeches and boots. In the process, she talked 2 of the hoary bats into staying behind. The others, the head of each colony, the lone pipistrelle, and one particularly scared hoary, clung to her nightshirt and hair. They would go with her, they said. Sarge, who ran the trainees on night watch, and Callie sat in front of the stable, talking. From the look of things, the princess had been unable to sleep. "Dane?" Sarge asked when she emerged. The girl's blue eyes widened. Abruptly, Dane saw herself as they, as humans, must see her. Small, wriggling animals swarming on her, clinging to hair and clothes. They tried their best to be clean, but a couple of them had lost control of their bowels. "I must look like a monster." Dane swallowed a lump in her throat. She hadn't realized how much Callie's opinion, or Sarge's, had come to mean to her. "I have to talk to the Baron," she whispered without looking at them. Callie walked over hesitantly. She stopped, then reached out to touch a furry body. The little brown bat transferred his affections to her in a leap. She squeaked, then let him snuggle into her collar. "He smells you on me." Her tiny smile trembled and held. Sarge got up, his brown eyes kind. "Come on, girls." The master of the Swoop was in his study. The Queen and Joshua, the captain of the Swoop's guards, were there as well, seated in comfortable chairs, while Numer stared out one of the windows. "What's all this?" George asked. His sharp eyes took in Dane's riders as well as Callie's small hanger-on. Thea yelped when she saw Dane. Joshua was on his feet, dagger half drawn. Numer looked around, frowning. "Please, don't startle them." The bats caught the surge of her own fears. She made herself take a deep breath and get under control. "Don't open your eyes," she cautioned the bats. The room was cozily lit from a human standpoint, but not from theirs. "They won't hurt anyone." "It's only bats, Mama." Sarge's mouth twitched. It was impossible to tell that Callie herself had been upset by them only a few minutes ago. Thea and Joshua stared at Dane. "It's important, sir," she told the Baron. "I wouldn't have brought them if it wasn't." "May I?" Numer asked, pointing to the hoary bat. The animal's nose was already questing, having located interesting smells on the sorcerer's clothes. Gently, Dane handed him over. In one of Numer's gigantic palms, the bat was dwarfed. "What news have your friends brought for me?" George asked. Dane looked at his face, but saw no trace of mockery or disbelief. "Either he's the world's finest player, or he believes in me," she thought. "Have you a map?" He gestured behind her. She turned and saw a table covered with sheets of parchment. On top was a map of Pirate Swoop. Holding down a corner of it was a box of small, colored pebbles. Consulting with her friends, she put one at each location where strangers had been seen, explaining to the adults as she worked. "All this since twilight," she said when she was finished. "We think it's more'n 500 all told." She looked at the picture she'd made and blanched. The stones formed a half circle a mile away from the castle and village of Pirate Swoop. They had been surrounded in the dark.